during this latent phase, when there seems to be nothing happening, what's happening? So many things. I'm going to go back again to a picture that we did last week. Remember this? Remember that one? Okay. So this is our axon terminal of the motor axon. This is the motor end plate of the muscle sarcolemma. These are the acetylcholine receptors attached to the sodium channels. And all of this up here mimics that little impulse on the muscle twitch. But what has to happen? Acetylcholine has to bind to the receptor. Sodium channels have to open. The inside of the cell becomes more positive, allowing sodium channels nearby to open, causing the inside nearby to become more positive, causing other sodium channels to open, positive. Other sodium channels open, sodium comes in, positive. This chain reaction that happens. Okay. I'm obviously doing this in super slow-mo. And then sodium comes in down the T-tubules, making the inside positive, opening calcium channels, allowing calcium to come rushing out. Okay. And then we move down to see what's happening down below my picture here. Whoops. What's happening down here is calcium binds to troponin and moves tropomyosin out of the way so that myosin can attach, and contraction can begin. You see all that stuff that had to happen? Let's go backwards. Sodium comes in at the motor end plate, causing a chain reaction of sodium in, 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 down the T-tubule, sodium in, sodium in, sodium in, sodium in, calcium out into the sarcolemma. Calcium binds to troponin. Troponin bends and contracts and pulls tropomyosin out of the way. So now myosin can attach to actin and start the contraction. So let's go back again, where I have now erased my little sketch, but I'll do it real quick. Here's the impulse right there. This is the latent period. What is happening in the muscle cells? All the stuff that I just said. What is happening is waves of action potential across the sarcolemma, down the T-tubules, opening calcium channels, letting calcium come out of the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and then finally calcium binds to the troponin and bends troponin, pulling tropomyosin out of the way so that myosin can attach to actin. Whew. I am surprised that it all can happen in 5/1000ths of a second. I'm stunned. But there is a latent period. That's what that is. During the contraction phase, what's happening is the power stroke. Myosin is attaching, pulling, letting go, resetting, attaching, pulling, letting go, reset. So this is what we refer to as the power cycle, where myosin is, and there's plenty of ATP available, so myosin is free to attach, pull, let go, reset, attach, pull, let go, reset, and keep the muscle contracted. And then what's happening during relaxation? What is it that you have to make go away to get the muscle to relax? What do you have to make go away? We talked about this a little bit earlier today, just as a refresher. What do you got to make go away? Got to make the calcium go away. Yes. So the calcium has to get pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. And that takes ATP. That requires ATP to pump the calcium back into the SR. And when calcium goes away, troponin can't move tropomyosin. So tropomyosin slips in front of the actin and blocks it, forcing the muscle to relax. And all that has to happen during relaxation. And we already talked about fast twitch and slow twitch, so I'll kind of skip over that. And the refractory period, which is kind of the period where you can't get another muscle contraction because everything hasn't really reset itself, is called the refractory period. But that idea is pretty important. Oh, I already talked about this, and I already talked about all that. I don't know why I have that here, and we did that question already. Here we go. This is what I wanted to talk about. It's because fast glycolytic and slow oxidative are mentioned again at the top of page 117. That explains it. So the refractory period, kind of top middle of 117, the refractory period is where no matter what, you can't get another contraction because the muscle hasn't fully reset yet. Okay? So what has been found, and again, this is mostly on the myogram in a laboratory, is if you stimulate the muscle, you get the latent period contraction and it starts to relax. But if you shock the muscle with another impulse before it has fully relaxed, you get another twitch. But notice that the magnitude of the twitch, the strength of the twitch of that second one is greater than the first one. And then if you hit and you let it start to relax and then hit it with another action potential before that second one is fully relaxed, then you get another twitch that's even greater than that one before. The overall effect is an increase in force of contraction that's known as summation, where you get a new stimulus before the muscle has completely relaxed. If the stimulus is fast enough, like in real life, not on some computer thing, if the stimulus is fast enough, the effect is a rapid summation to a full sustained contraction. And that smooth, sustained contraction is called tetanus. Tetanus. That smooth, sustained contraction is known as a tetanus or a complete tetanus. And this is like in real life. This is a sustained muscle contraction. So if you got, I don't know, pick something here. I got a book. There we go. I got a book. It's my Gray's Anatomy, right? So I've got a book here, and I'm lifting this book right here. Nope, no, that's a cramp. That's a cramp. Not a Charlie horse. A Charlie horse is a cramp. What I'm doing right here is tetanus. What I'm doing, can you not see? Can you not see me in the camera? Do I have my camera off? Can you guys see me? Yes? Yes? No, some say no, some say yes. Try that refresh. I got the camera. I see myself. I see myself. All right. Well, there goes my example. You got to click on me. You got to click on me, Joshua Clark. That's right. Everybody click on me. Click on me. Look, I'm sitting here holding a book for you. Okay, somebody's got to refresh. Okay, she's got to refresh. Hopefully that works. Okay, Tristika, click on me. Click on me down in the corner. I might be too small. That might be the problem. At refreshing work, Dominique? Okay, all right. So there should be a little, I feel refreshed. This reminds me, I need to take a break in a second, get some water. My throat is dry. So look, what I'm doing here with these muscles on my arm, on my anterior arm, mostly this is biceps brachii and brachialis. So I'm holding the book steady and smooth. This is a smooth, sustained contraction. A smooth, sustained contraction called tetanus. Complete tetanus. A smooth, sustained contraction. It's not a Charlie horse. It's not it's not a cramp. That is an involuntary, full muscle contraction, and it's painful. because it's mostly painful because of how it constricts the muscle fibers and pulls on the tendons. What I'm talking about is just holding something, holding a baby, holding a bag of groceries, holding your phone up to your ear. Every muscle contraction where you just hold the contraction, where you hold the muscle nice and smooth, is called tetanus. It's referred to as tetanus. Yeah, that's a good point. Tristica, type that in. Time under tension gets the gains. You know what I call it? I call it yoga. I call it yoga. If you guys have ever done yoga, that's what it is. Yoga. Now, there's more to yoga than just that, but the physical philosophy theory behind yoga, just on the muscle side, is holding poses and holding muscles in sustained contraction. I'm sure that it's a high intensity interval training workout. That's what HIIT stands for, if anybody doesn't know what that is. High intensity interval, it's high intensity interval training. So yes, got to get my I's in the correct order. But yes, and you can, during the intervals, you can do sustained contractions, or you can do things that are aerobic, like running in place, something simple like jogging in place. But you're alternating between, an intensity and a recovery period, a short recovery period. But any sustained contraction is basically this tetanus, and this is how your nervous system sends these repeated, that's what these little green arrows represent, repeated action potentials that allow your muscle to get to this sustained contraction that you can hold. Look, I know not everybody is sitting up at a desk right now. You may be at home, lounging on the sofa, laying back. But if you're like me and you're just kind of sitting up in the chair, the muscles in my back are doing tetanus to keep my body straight and upright. Okay? So this is known as tetanus, is what you get to. It takes, let me kind of emphasize the relationship. It takes summation to get to that point, but your nervous system does it very quickly. As quickly as you can pick up an object, as quickly as you can stand up. Yeah, so your legs when you're standing as well. Yeah, exactly. So when you're standing still, not moving, not running, standing still, you're holding these sustained contractions in the muscles of your hips, legs, and calves and feet to stand perfectly still. Yes, and that's what we refer to as tetanus. Now there's this other effect, and you have to know about it because we often ask about it on the exam. Okay, planking, yes, tetanus, absolutely. And it's called, this other thing is called treppe. Treppe. You kind of say treppe, treppe, treppe. Also, only in the laboratory. I think the textbook is finally, this version of the textbook has gotten to the point where it's finally honest with us enough to say that treppe is something that is not observed in real life muscle. Only observed when a muscle on a machine is stimulated after it has fully relaxed. It is not the same as summation. You can see that you do get a slight increase in contraction, but it's going to max out far below the maximum tension that you get from summation. This up here is the result of, this tetanus is the result of summation. Sorry, I keep wanting to blame my technology, but my little writing thing here keeps hiccuping. So partially it's just my terrible handwriting. But that's summation right there. Okay, so let me go back and forth to emphasize these two, because the word tetanus and the word treppe are easy to confuse. Tetanus is the result of summation, and it can result in the maximum force of contraction that muscle can give you, but you get there by giving a stimulus before the muscle has completely relaxed. That's it. That's the, towards the bottom of page 117, tetanus, sustained muscle contraction with no full relaxation is how I would rephrase it. You can have a little bit of relaxation, but not a full relaxation, okay? All right, treppe is when you allow the muscle fiber to fully relax before the next stimulus. Treppe is where you allow it to fully relax before you hit it with a stimulus again, okay? And you will not get the same tension. The maximum tension in treppe is much lower than it is with tetanus, okay? Now, I only make a big deal out of that because that sometimes turns out to be a multiple choice or a short answer type question. What do you call the effect that happens when a muscle fiber is stimulated and then allowed to fully relax before the next stimulus, but still a slight increase in tension? That's treppe. If it says something about fully relaxed in between, it's treppe. Okay? Oh, here's a sample. There you go. If you contract and completely relax a muscle several times, the force of contraction increases. What is this called? But here's the key thing to look at. It is still allowed to completely relax, right? So that's an example of treppe. But remember, the force in treppe doesn't go up very high and also doesn't happen in real muscle. With real muscle, you get a force that can reach its maximum. Okay? Now, on that note, another thing that we talked about last time, I want to tie this back into motor units. Okay? This maximum is for like a single motor unit, not the whole muscle. Okay, so again, I don't know if you guys can see me in the camera. I'll try not to make too big of a deal out of what's going on in the camera down there. But I got my little pen here, and I'm using these same muscles in my arm to lift my little pen, but I'm not using very many motor units. I'm using the same muscle, I'm just not using all the muscle fibers in it. When I pick up this book, I'm still not using all the muscle fibers in it. I hope I can pick up more than just this book. I hope this doesn't represent my max. But it does require more motor units. Now, when I lift it, each motor unit is going to its maximum summation. But it's just more motor units with the book than it is with lighter weight objects. Okay, I hope that kind of connects that too. All right, one other concept, and we'll take a break before we shift over to the other chapter. And that is the idea that's connected with this, those kinds of contractions that we were talking about with time under tension to get the gains, yoga, sustained contractions. Your muscles can do two different kinds of contraction. One is called an isotonic contraction. The prefix iso means same, tonic means tension. So the muscle remains under constant tension while it shortens. So this is like lifting weights or lifting up that book or picking up a bag of groceries off of the ground where your muscle actually moves and shortens while you lift the object. That's called an isotonic contraction. The other kind of contraction is still a contraction, but where the muscle isn't actually shortening, it's staying the same length. The tension increases, usually to the max the muscle can give, but the muscle doesn't shorten. Like, when you first pull on a piece of barbed wire or something to help your friend through the fence, you do pull up on it a little bit, so it's isotonic up to a point, but then you get to a point where you can't pull the wire any further, but that doesn't mean you've stopped contracting. You've just pulled as hard as you can. That sustained contraction is an isometric contraction. All right? So that, and it's not always max, but this would be like, doing a yoga pose and holding it for 20, 30 seconds, for a full minute, just holding that. All of your muscles would be contracting to hold you in that pose, or standing up. They'd be contracting to hold you in that position. They're just not causing any movement. So those are all isometric contractions. We get isotonic contractions when the muscle is actually causing movement of the body part. So which of these occurs during an isometric contraction? Remember, what we want you to notice when you look at a question like this on the exam or on a homework is focus on what you know about this. This is kind of sustained contraction, no movement. Okay. The isometric really, if it's purely isometric, there's really no movement. There's really no movement. And if you see a question like this on the test, assume no movement. Okay, so which of these happens during an isometric contraction? Okay, and I want to kind of help you narrow this down. Because it's no movement, something's staying the same. Nothing's getting smaller. Nothing's getting wider. Things only get smaller when a muscle is actually contracting. And during an isometric contraction, it's a sustained, it's held. Okay? Okay, so all of these other ones really only happen during an isotonic contraction or relaxation, where the body part, where the limb, the arm is moving and changing shape. Okay, so if it's isometric, almost all of the parts of a sarcomere are going to pretty much stay the same. I think I got one more slide. Yeah, I did want to kind of mention very briefly cardiac muscle and smooth muscle. I think the key things to remember about cardiac muscle, they are self-excitable, lots of mitochondria, way more mitochondria even than skeletal muscle. Think about it, guys. Where is cardiac muscle found? Where's the only place in your body where cardiac muscle is found? The only place, your heart. What is the absolute last muscle in your body you want to have a cramp or fatigue? The heart, right? So these mitochondria make cardiac muscle fatigue resistant, almost fatigue proof, but I would say definitely fatigue resistant. Okay? They also have sarcomeres, just like skeletal muscle, so that means they are striated. They have dark and light bands. They're also connected end to end. Here's a key thing. Skeletal muscle is attached to skeleton. What attaches a muscle to a bone? What attaches a skeletal muscle to a bone? What's the structure? What's the organ that attaches a muscle to a bone? A tendon, right? That's right, tendon. So skeletal muscle fibers attach to tendons. Tendons attach to bone. Skeletal, put SK. Skeletal muscle attaches to a tendon, and a tendon attaches to a bone. Okay? Cardiac muscle, cells attach to other cells. You have muscle fibers attached to muscle fibers all the way around the heart, and it makes this kind of cylindrical shaped organ that fills and pumps with blood. It does not attach to bone. So attachment points from one cardiac muscle cell to the next are called intercalated discs. Intercalated discs. And intercalated discs have two structures that keep them attached: desmosomes and gap junctions. The gap junctions actually have little holes in them that allow one cell to share ions with another cell. And that the physiology of how that works is going to come into play next semester when we talk about cardiac muscle in more detail. They also have extremely long refractory periods. You cannot get a single twitch, even if you take cardiac muscle out of some animal's heart and put it on a myogram, you can't get a twitch out of it. It looks more like this. It'll look more like this up here at the top. Skeletal muscle does like that. You get a quick twitch and it lasts maybe 1 millisecond. 1 millisecond. Cardiac muscle, it's going to look like this, and it's going to sustain, and then it's going to drop down, and the whole thing lasts like 300 milliseconds. Okay, so it does not reach, it doesn't do summation, no tetanus, no twitch, very different physiologically. So a couple of things to know about smooth muscle, locations. Where is smooth muscle located in the body? Walls of hollow organs. So the GI tract, your digestive system, respiratory system, reproductive system, the bladder. Mostly these hollow organs that need to move something from one area to another place. They do not have sarcomeres. In fact, that's why they're called smooth. No striations. No striations. Okay. Do they have actinomyosin? Absolutely yes. Yes, absolutely they do. That's how they contract. They're just arranged in a little bit different way. Do they use troponin? Yes. Calcium's role? Yeah. It's a little bit different, but the most important thing to remember about calcium's role is it doesn't bind to troponin. Now, your lecture notes say there is no troponin. Troponin is not attached to tropomyosin, so there's no direct connection between the whole pathway. So, yeah. It's not that the cells do have some troponin, they just don't use it for contraction. So what is calcium's role? What does calcium do in smooth muscle? What does it actually do? Anything? Anything you find out? We have it. It's just not, I was trying to draw a question mark. We're just not entirely sure exactly what it's for. It's not the same in cardiac muscle as in cardiac muscle and skeletal muscle. Yep. Yes, there is calcium in extracellular fluid of all of your cells. Yeah. Actinomyosin is responsible for the contraction, but it's not striated. So what causes smooth muscle to contract? What usually is the trigger for smooth muscle contraction? If it's not calcium, like it is in skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle, what is it? It's kind of in bold there towards the bottom of page 119. Stretch. It's weird. This muscle tissue is involuntary, so it will contract without your brain thinking about it. What stimulates it to contract is usually being stretched. It has this kind of stretch, relaxation, and then contraction response. And that's what allows it to work that way. And that's a thing that I think is not only important because it's in bold, that stretch relaxation response. Not just because it's in bold here, but because we for sure are going to talk about it in a system, in the urinary system, when we talk about how the kidneys use microscopic little amounts of smooth muscle to control filtration and production of urine. So that's gonna come back around again. All right. Between now and next week, we're not done. I just need to stop and get some some water. I need to take a short break and get something for my throat. But between now and next week, I want you to work on and fill out Chapter 11, and I'll go through Chapter 11 with you next week time permitting. But like I said, I want to skip it for now, and for this week, I want to start this stuff here, chapter 12, which is over on page 131. And again, a big part of why I want to go ahead and start it now is because a lot of this stuff can be pretty technical and detailed, but it adds to what we've already been talking about with skeletal muscle. So it just sort of, it builds on what we've already been talking about, because nervous system cells called neurons function in similar ways to how action potentials occur in skeletal muscle. So if you'll bear with me, I should have mentioned it last week. I forgot to let you know to get a little bit ahead that I was going to do this, so I apologize. But I think it's going to make good sense for us to go ahead and start on this trickier stuff, and we can finish it next week and get to chapter 11 next week too. Okay? All right, so short break. We'll start right back up again